Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Sonora Spring Zoo. Hope you guys are all having the most wonderful of wonderful days. My name is Leaf, and it's so great to have you guys back over here as we get to work on the biggest habitat in Sonora Spring Zoo. Very excited about this. It was very daunting to do. As you guys probably know, I don't like my big exhibits. I find them very, very scary to actually make. I don't really it's typically build hoofstock enclosures or anything like that. I say that, but I've made a lot in my kind of YouTube career, but I typically don't like to do them. I like my small ones where I could pack in a bunch of detail in just a nice small area. But today, I wanted to pack in a lot of detail into a large exhibit. So today, we are building for the reticulated giraffe. We are also building for the blue wildebeest, which is our DLC animal in here. I think it's the second to last or third to last DLC animal in here. I think we actually get rid of the emu, but I could be mistaken. I really got to go back and double check like the space in Sonora Spring Zoo, make sure that we are able to actually build for it or find a place to build it. Not really sure, but we'll figure it out relatively soon. But today we are also building for the plain zebra. Very nice animal, might I add. Narwhaler actually just put out a really awesome remaster of it. Unfortunately, I didn't have it installed for the actual cinematics portion of today's episode, so that's a little boof, but not really sure what we'll be doing about that, but I'll get that in there eventually just when we get the final tour going. So you can see over here I wanted to have a little bit more of a different kind of style for the actual holding barn because I really wanted the holding barn to stick out from the rest of the habitat, especially given the fact that hoofstock animals, they don't really typically have too much interactivity in their habitat. More often than not, they're just big open plains. Sometimes they have a little bit of slopes and elevation in here. I took a little bit of creative liberty. I put in a few a little bit of cliff work in here. Normally you wouldn't have that for hoofstock enclosures. You risk the the fact that they might fall down and stuff like that, but we experiment a little bit here at Sonora Spring Zoo. So I really wanted the main focus of this habitat to be the holding barn itself. So I have it very ornate, very decorated, kind of based off of Turtleback Zoo in New Jersey. Really awesome small institution. You guys should definitely go there if you're in the area. Really awesome zoo, and they have pangolin, which is very, very crazy to see. But I really wanted this to stick out, so I have a little bit of an adornment on top, and I do fix that up later down the line. The top of it really wasn't too interesting, so I do a custom roof up top there. Something I don't really do too often, but it's something that really helps to bring a build together is a custom roof. Really suggest you guys try that out whenever you do get the chance. But you can see I really wanted these windows up here not to be overwhelming, so I kind of cover up some with just the Twilight wood panels, and I also utilize all those Zen pebbles up there. Again, a hidden piece in Planet Zoo, but you are able to use that without any mods. Just go check out my workshop and you should be able to find the Zen pebble pieces. Now, getting started on the actual viewing area from the guests over here, one of the things that you should always keep in mind when you are building in Planet Zoo is how does the exhibit look from the guest perspective? And that's always super important to keep in mind. You normally, whenever I am building for enclosures, especially larger ones, I always pop down, and you'll see this throughout the entire speed build, I always pop down to where the guests would be looking at it from, and kind of build according to there, because let's be honest, you can build for animals really easily, but it's the guest perspective that really, really needs to be taken into account because they're the ones paying. The animals aren't paying for the zoo, your guests are. What I also include over there is a small guest experience area. So that would take you behind the scenes to visit the giraffe barn and as well as the lion barn. Maybe you wouldn't actually... Lion barn. Oh, geez. Lion holding. Not really a barn. But you would be able to go over there and feed them like, pieces of lettuce or something for an extra fee. A lot of zoos that I've been going to recently have had that. I know Naples Zoo has it for really cheap. It's only $5, but Miami, it's a little bit more steep. I think it's like 20 to be able to feed the giraffes, which is very cool. I really suggest you guys try that out to begin with. Naples is so cheap for doing that. It's like $5. That's incredible. But yeah, that's kind of the thing I wanted to include over there. So getting through over here and just adding the rest of the faux rock work all throughout here, just making sure that it feels a little bit more organic getting through here, just making sure that, you know, it feels like you're actually on a cliff face, like looking into a nice big savanna, which is kind of what it looks like. So I also start to do a tiny bit of biome painting over there. I completely redo it after I put in all the foliage because I kind of design pathways first, then I design the foliage around that, and then I go back and re-biome paint everything, just to make sure everything kind of follows some sound logic. I also include some plants up here at the guest viewing, just to help make sure that the area feels a little bit more planted, makes it feel a little bit more manicured and whatnot. I also add some signage for the guests as well, just to make sure that we have a little bit of education in Sonora Springs Zoo, making sure that, you know, animals are being accounted for, animals are actually being, you know, kind of looked after. Really awesome signs by Lion, really awesome creator. Go check them out on the workshop. I also do a custom fence back here. This is based off of the Franklin Park Zoo's giraffe exhibit, and I wanted this to feel a little bit more unique. So I kind of have this be on like a little bit of a slope, so those wires kind of droop down. I don't know. I just thought that was super fun to do. So I kind of line these up going throughout the entire habitat, and I have it so that it's always kind of flush with the land. I don't really go for any unique angles or anything like that. I really just wanted to make sure that, you know, they all linked up in the end. So if you are in the habitat for some reason and you are keeping a close eye on those actual kind of wire fences, you can see that they actually do line up to each other. Another thing I wanted to do was this custom thing over here, which is also based off of the Franklin Park Zoo, which is in Boston. Really awesome place. Go check it out. But yeah, this is a ruler. I really wanted to have something over here that was kind of based off of what they have at Franklin. It's essentially a ruler that shows you the different heights of all the giraffes in the exhibit. So I kind of do this custom piece over here, and it's so awesome that we have like grid snap and like, you know, 1 meter pieces. So I was actually able to kind of have this all stick up to each other, and it all lines up perfectly. I'm not sure how accurate all of these heights would be. I think it's a little bit off, but I don't think anyone's really going to notice. So you can see I tried to do a custom giraffe head over here. I really wasn't feeling it, so I had to reach out to my good buddy Just Goron. I didn't really reach out to him, I used one of his blueprints. But I actually used it as a way to get a reference as to the giraffes. So I kind of take his Bexabergen, however you want to pronounce it, Bob's Burgers if you want, and get these lovely little giraffe pictures. Ideally, they would have the name, so the giraffes on top of there, but you could see that I kind of stacked up the giraffes right next to the ruler and got their accurate heights, so that all stays relatively true to what's happening in the exhibit. I don't know, I really thought that was super cute. So I also work on the actual feeding dock over here. Nothing really too crazy. I really want to experiment a little bit with my wooden buildings. So I get very accustomed with the Twilight wood pieces yet again. Again, just really solid pieces over here. I know everyone kind of talks about the Twilight pack and how super stylized the pack is. It's really not. We just get like a weird bunch of gargoyles and we get a weird bunch of mushroom sets. But everything else is just so incredible to use. I don't know. I love these wood pieces more than anything else in the game. They're just super awesome and super versatile to use. And they have a really, really awesome kind of warm texture on them that just fits the game so well, especially for like a desert area like this. It just feels like these pieces of wood have seen like, you know, the worst of it. So I add all of those guys in there, and I start to work on the actual support beams in here, just making sure that it feels very logical, that it feels like it wouldn't cave in on itself. And I do a few small details in here, like these little kind of radial pieces. just making it feel a little bit more interesting just at the lack of actual theming itself. I do add some of the Africa beads into here, but not before I add the actual rope pieces, just to help keep the guests inside of that little area. Ideally, you would have a keeper with them at all times, but I still wanted to make sure that they were safe in here. You can see I add the beads in here, but I wanted to go for a little bit more of a reddish color. So I have red, white, and black in here. Just a really awesome mix of colors. I feel like that's a really, really good Sonora Springs palette. And what I also do over here is get to work on the lion habitat. Remember that, guys? So I add the lion habitat. Well, I add to it a little bit because this is predator-prey. These exhibits are technically part of the same viewing area. So I figure, you know what, might as well include this in the speed build as well. I was really not happy with, well, I was kind of happy with how this viewing area kind of turned out, but I felt like it was missing a little something. So I add a few structural supports in here just to help it feel like it's a little bit more logical. Follows a little bit more of a something in here. I don't really know, but I really wanted to make sure it felt a little bit more consistent with the rest of the zoo and helps it feel a little bit more put together. What I still need to do is put on cloth up there or some kind of shades or some kind of like, you know, something. I don't really know. I'll figure it out relatively soon. Now you can see I'm going through with my classic tried and true technique of putting down the buffalo grass just all throughout the habitat, aligning it to the surface. And I also go throughout here and add the dry buffalo grass as well. Just going over the habitat kind of like a brush. It's very much painting when you kind of look at it. So I kind of do that all throughout the habitat and make sure that it feels nicely. Making sure that these kind of like areas are the areas that the like hoofstock wouldn't trot on. Ideally, when you are working in hoofstock areas, there are pace lines and there are areas where the animals would go over more often than not. And you would have areas where grass doesn't grow and grass does grow. So I kind of take all of those buffalo grasses and I sink them into the ground ever so slightly to kind of come off with a little bit more of a, I don't know, kind of variable look, so that every piece is a little bit more different than the last one. So I have that all throughout there, and it looks pretty damn good to begin with. I don't know, I'm very happy and satisfied with how it looks. So yeah, you can see that all throughout there. It looks very nice and very beautiful. And I also add the drin grass as well because it's just a really, really awesome dry piece. And it just looks super awesome. I don't know. I just really do like how this all comes together in the end. I don't know. I was just so afraid of working on this habitat to begin with, because it's such a dynamic habitat. There's so many moving pieces in here, but it's also just a lot of the same. And that's kind of like my main fear of working with hoofstock habitats. It's just how dull I think it might be. But in the end, it just turns out super beautiful because you work on these small little pieces in here. You work on these small little vignettes. I hope I pronounced that right. All throughout here, just making sure that it feels like it's telling a story. Like some areas have a little bit more foliage than others. Some areas are like at the bottom of a cliffside, so you'd get a lot more greener plants in there due to like rainfall and like soil runoff and whatnot. But adding some other trees in here, I have to give a huge shout out to the comment selection as well, just allowing me to know what kinds of trees would also grow around Arizona. Let me actually look at my friend's name over there, just because she's been commenting a whole lot as of late, and I want to give her a quick little shout out. But olive trees have been very apparent in kind of like, you know, the section that we're building in Arizona / New Mexico / California. Definitely California. Jess Quinn, big shout out to her. Really, really awesome commenter. Shout out to her. But yeah, olive trees and a lot more dry foliage has been growing around here, so I really want to incorporate that a little bit, and I will be doing that once we actually do get to the rest of the zoo. But over here I just want to stick with what we know best. So you can see I'm working on the roof over here, and I'm super satisfied with it. It was just a really nice icing on the cake, if that makes any sense at all. It just really helps bring the entire building together. Normally, I'm fine with flat roofs over here. A lot of the times when you are building for, you know, deserts, you're able to get away with flat roofs because it doesn't really snow, which is the main issue whenever it does come to flat roofs. A lot of the times when you are building in, like, I don't know, New England, if you're building in like the Midwest, particularly the north of the Midwest, like Chicago area, you don't really want to deal with roofs that kind of collect snow because you risk the fact that they may cave in on themselves. You may risk the fact that rain may gather on top of the roof. But when you're in the desert, you don't really need to deal with that, so you can get away with some flat roofs. But that's not what I do over there. I wanted a little bit of a conical kind of pyramid shape on the top, just to help it feel like it's, you know, a nice solid lodge back there. I also go throughout here in the edge of the habitat and add as much foliage as I can, just to help the area feel like it's very nice and secluded, because on the other side, as you might have guessed, are the actual roads to the zoo. And normally, it'd be kind of loud for the animals, so I wanted that natural barrier in between, just to help keep them less stressed out, especially hoofstock. I really want to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible, so I kind of keep them away from the guests as well, and away from the kind of like, you know, hum of the highways and stuff like that. I don't know, I just felt like that kind of worked out pretty good over there. What I also do throughout here is actually get to work on the moat area. So in this little habitat, we do have the dry moat separating both the lions from the hoofstock as well as the hoofstock from the guests. And that's something I really wanted to make sure was an integral part to this habitat. So I kind of organically weave it into here with a little bit of biome paint. I have some sand down there because sand would kind of collect down there as like the winds kind of pick up in the desert itself, and a little bit of grass and a little bit of plants would grow down there, just because that's what you would kind of see as soon as like seeds kind of get distributed down there, and water might flow down there as well. But adding a whole bunch of different kinds of plants in there, just a bunch of dry ones, because the kind of greener ones would kind of be up top a little bit more. Maybe the actual landscapers over here would work on a little bit of like lawn care inside of the habitats as well, just making sure that they're nice and green for the guests themselves to actually look at, because guests like to see nice green habitats. I know I do. If I see like a dry kind of drab habitat, I'm not really a big fan of it. So it's just something I like to incorporate in the lore of my zoos. Speaking of the lore, I am also working on a little bit of the backstage over here. I don't really want to go too crazy with it. It's definitely going to be in its own episode, just working on a whole bunch of backstage elements. But I really wanted this garage door back there for the actual barn. Just making sure that we are able to get the giraffes in there if they do need to be transported in and out. And making sure that they're able to get the hay in there, especially for hoofstock. Hoofstock require a lot of hay. A lot of the time zoos actually have their own dedicated hay barns, where it's just hay on hay on hay because they eat so much of it. Well, maybe hay, maybe straw, I don't really know. Bold, let me know in the comments. Bold is always the #1 person correct me on the difference between hay and straw, and yet I still have not learned. I'm so sorry, Bold. But adding the rest of the details to this little backstage area, really wanted to have this area feel a little bit more planted up. So I include a few different kinds of plants in here, especially the saltwort. It'd definitely be a plant that they would bring in here, just to help decorate the area a little bit. And I also do some custom curbing in here as well, because this would be a technically a guest experience area, so I do want it to look a little bit better, but probably not as good as the rest of the areas in the zoo. So I'll kind of incorporate that into the lore once I actually do get to that point where I do feel comfortable kind of like working on the backstage elements throughout this zoo. But yeah, that's really it for there, and I think we should be done with the backstage. I'm gonna leave most of that for, you know, another time, except for, you know, doing some small plants around here and so on and so forth. Alright, but that's really it, my friends, and I realized that the sound is a little too loud, so I'm just gonna lower the sound of that over there. But thank you all so much for watching. You guys are always the best. Be sure to drop a like and a comment if you can, if you so dare, because you know what, you guys are the best, and I don't even care if you do or you don't. I appreciate you guys even stopping by to begin with. I hope you guys have the most wonderful of wonderful days, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode of Sonora Springs Zoo. Take care and goodbye.